Hello, and welcome to Lesson 7 of the Language and Media Scheme of Work. This is looking at exploring an example answer, looking at how the key elements kind of come together to meet the mark scheme criteria. So the text you're given today is Text B is an article from the Mail on Sunday event magazine by writer Rob Wall in the technology section of the publication. This article was published on the 26th of January 2014. So just as always, when you're given a text, just start off with what are your excitations based on language levels? So based on the fact that it's from the Mail, that it's written by a writer for the Mail on Sunday, the fact that it's in their magazine, the fact that it's technology related, what do we expect in terms of the language used? And then anything to do with genre, audience and purpose. Is there anything we can say with regards to production or reception? The ideas that maybe the producer brings, the ideas that the receiver brings. Spend 5 minutes or so. 5 minutes on the video. Okay, so this article was sent out to us right at the start of the course as a specimen text. And what that means is it basically is, before there are lots of exams that have been taken sort of year after year, you don't have a collection of texts to use and sort of questions to use for exams. So this was kind of like representative of this is a language and a media text. So it is quite useful to look at because it's supposed to be the representative text basically for this module. Read through it. As you read, annotate and identify any relevant language levels or any relevant sort of concepts or ideas. So anything to do with representation, anything to do with language and technology, language change is in there, and also actually to some extent there's language and gender because he is a man talking about technology, of course. So there are elements in there, as you'll see, where perhaps there are things explored about kind of gender and language. You'll be given an example answer to work through, so like the actual annotating and finding things, you shouldn't take too long on that necessarily, but it'll be good, obviously, if you find stuff that's then mentioned in the example answer, it will show that you're kind of along the right sort of lines and you're picking out the right sort of things. And it's just good practice, anytime you're given a text, to pick things out as you go along. So the example answer, as always, I warn you that this is written by a teacher, but this is more in keeping, I think, with what you're all capable of, in a way that the one that I gave for the feminism lesson was perhaps not. This is a little bit more written by a teacher, but I would say a bit more in the eyes of what a student could create effectively. For the time being, I think you should focus just on reading it. If you're someone, though, who wants to, you can highlight for AO2, so that's concepts and theory. You can highlight for AO3, context. It's up to you. But basically, it's designed to be one that you can use in the next task. It's a good answer, of course. Therefore, if you want to sort of pick it apart a little bit first, so look for the two different criteria, by all means do. So I've given you two sheets. I've given you a blank sheet of this, and I've given you a kind of a completed example of this. And what this is trying to do, and this is the exam board gave this out as a resource because they thought it was a useful way of, rather than just picking apart an example answer by saying, oh, look, here's some AO2, here's some AO3, is getting you to try and deconstruct the answer. So look for what the person is doing at each stage. So in the middle, I'll try and talk you through this. It's one of those ones that might be easier if we were in a classroom, but I'll talk you through it as best I can, and you can try and do it as best you can. So from the answer, so not the text, you're not looking at the text itself, you're looking to deconstruct the answer that you've been given. Identify a pattern of language use, because that's what you should be doing the first and foremost. You should be going, here's a pattern of language use. And the example I gave here is the lexical field of technology. Straight away, why is the lexical field of technology of relevance? So I've got here on the left, it says related to a concept, so gender, power, tech, and change. The example here says represents the producer as knowledgeable. So obviously, if you're writing a technology-based article in a technology section of a magazine, you'll use that lexical field to show that you are knowledgeable about it. On the right-hand side, it says here, what does it show us initially about representations, sort of intended producers and receivers? So it shows that, the implied audience might want specific information. It suggests to me that they are already knowledgeable about what's going on. And it says, although the idea of the technology is that, they talk about stuff that is widely known, so therefore it doesn't alienate a more general audience who might be targeted in this thing. Now, I've not come up with these two things on the left and the right. The answer that you've read should have elements of this. It's just a case of deconstructing it as you go along. So you would find the part where he says about it being about being knowledgeable. You'll find the part where it says about the ideas being maybe more generalized to not sort of turn away people who don't have a very, very strong knowledge of technology. As you go further down, the middle box then chooses specific examples. And it kind of goes back to that funneling idea that I've talked about in the past, where you start with a broad and you go down to the funnel thing. So in this example, they give Wi-Fi and app, which I guess are the ones that are more general, that most people know, of course. So therefore, it's trying to appeal to a broader audience. And then the proper noun Nest, which is a technology company. There are 4 boxes, as you see, coming off of this. So you've got on the left, you've got how does the example relate to genre, audience, and purpose. So, the stuff there, so do have a look, of course. It goes, how does the specific example link to concepts outlined above, power, gender, change, tech, etc.? Effectively, you may have said, like, this is how it links to technology or gender or power in that top box that was on the left. But by the time you've identified a specific example, there may be a slight difference. The example I give here is that Nest is not widely known and suggests a specialist knowledge. It's the idea that specifically this one is the part where, it said about specialist knowledge before, but this is the part in particular where this person is going, look, I understand technology. On the right-hand side, it says, what does the specific example tell us about the real audience? And then what does the specific example tell us about the real producer of the text? Again, you're not necessarily looking to do this from the text itself. You're not saying this is what I think about the various patterns. The answers will be within the example answer. You'll be basically picking apart what the person has written as a piece of analysis. In the past, I'll be honest with you, this has been a task that some people have struggled with without sort of some input. But obviously, as always, if there are any problems, do just let me know, and we'll be talking through it a bit in the lesson today anyway. And the last thing here just says fill in the sheet with at least one more language pattern. So the blank one, you can do more than one if you want to, if you think it's a useful task. Like, pretty much every section of the example answer has its own pattern that it looks at that you can pull apart and work out how they're linking it to concepts and audience and various things like that. But yeah, just do one at least. I have said here, if there's a box you are really unsure about, leave it and move on. Just bear in mind that some of the boxes will have similar information to them. For example, when the patterns of language use, one at the top, when you're talking about the genre, audience, and purpose, or you're talking about the concepts and theory, depending on what side you're looking at, when you move down to the specific examples, you might have similar kind of ideas about the concepts and theory and the audience. The person who's writing can't necessarily cover all bases at all times. So if you can't think of anything, leave it blank. But if you think you're just repeating yourself, it might be that you have to repeat yourself a little bit at times. It's kind of up to you. That's it. It's again, a lot of these are a bit more hands-on, so slightly less in terms of input. Just have a go at it. It's not designed to be something that's particularly kind of, as I said, it can be challenging, but it's designed to just get you, rather than just looking at an answer and going, oh, here's where they do well. It just gets you pulling it apart slightly more than before. As always, do contact me if you have any problems. Keep well, stay safe, and I will talk to you soon.